Hi, everybody. Alvinator here from Mulligans and Hackers Golf. And today on the podcast, we have Lori Blencowe, amateur
I,
long drive. Cool. So, Lori, I'm going to throw out some accolades here now, and I want to make sure that I get this right. So, 2022, 2023, plus 35 women's amateur long drive champion, correct?
correct.
22, 2022 and 2023.
Yes.
2023 plus 40 women's world champion amateur, correct?
Yes.
So
Correct.
two titles in 2023.
Yes.
Okay, so the accolades are there. World champion, amateur long drive. So let's go back a little bit, Lori. And how does one get to a point where long drive is the avenue that you go down when you pick up a golf club?
That's a really good question, Alvin.
I
Okay.
just because there, is where when did you start golf?
hmm
What led up to getting involved in golf and going, I think long drive, that's where I'm going to go. Just give us a little
Oh,
bit of background on that.
sure. So it starts with a little bit of a quick background on me. So I, for a number of years, was a competitive athlete in a number of different sports. When I was a junior, my biggest sport was tennis. I was a competitive tennis player for a number of years. And I was hoping to get a US scholarship. And on my 18th birthday, unfortunately, I blew out my ankle playing volleyball, intramural volleyball. And that was the end of the scholarship route. So my life kind of took a bit of a different direction, went to university, life gets in the way. And I kind of got away from doing competitive sports, but there is that competitive spirit that was still burning in me, and I was looking for an outlet of some sort. Golf had always appealed to me, but it was something in terms of time and money both, right? I'm a student, so I couldn't really afford to do golf the way that I would have liked to have, and in terms of time as well. So I got to a point in my life, my early 40s, and I'm like, wow, okay, I have the time and I have a little bit of money that I can put towards this hobby. So I wanted to try it out. So I started golfing. I'm entering my 6th year of golf this year. And yes, I had golfed a couple of times years ago. Here and there you play a scramble tournament or best ball or whatever, but never competitively, had never taken lessons. But 6 years ago, I decided to do that. So I started golfing, and in 2021, so just a couple of years after I picked up a golf club really seriously for the first time, I was out golfing at my club with a good friend and the local club pro. And I ended up out driving the club pro. And, she's like, wow, you can really hit a ball. So we came off the course, and I just, out of curiosity, I said, so in terms of other women at the club here, how far do I hit? She's like, oh no, like you hit the furthest and further than most men. I'm like, oh, okay. And so my good friend, she's like, well, why don't you enter a long drive competition? I was like, well, I don't know. I might hit long at my club, but what does that mean in terms like when you come up against other golfers, right? So I kind of was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. But she's like, no, you should try it out. So that night I went home and I Googled and just looked up long drive, and I came across the Canada Amateur Long Drive site. So I signed up for the mailing list. Next morning, I wake up. It's a Saturday morning. The ALD Tour Commissioner, Fareen Samji, had sent me an email, and she said, hey, thanks for signing up for the mailing list. So you're going to hit with us this year. I'm like, oh, no, no, I'm just looking for information. I'm not going to do this. And anyway, so we had an email exchange, and she was really encouraging. And she said, you know what, like just come out and give it a try. It doesn't hurt. So my husband, who's super supportive, said, you know what, like you have nothing to lose. Let's go. So a couple of weeks later, I live in Ottawa. I found myself in Barrie, Ontario, my first competition. So, and the rest is history. I found out, I did fairly well in my first competition, and I was hooked. I love hitting the ball hard. And then just the community was super welcoming. So that's very quickly in a nutshell how I found myself entering golf and then entering long drive.
Okay, so you enter your first competition.
Hmm?
So you were a member of Team Canada Amateur Long Drive, correct?
So I had to my first season, I had to earn my way onto the team.
Right.
And that
So
was by playing a series of qualifiers.
so let's go to that. So now you've been in your first competition. Now
Mhm.
you're going to your qualifiers to get that amateur status with Team Canada. So give us a little bit of rundown on the qualifying tournaments, the
Sure.
the 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 work that goes into building a long drive swing, because it is
Okay.
different than
Yes.
golf, right? And
hmm
equipment as well. Equipment is
Yes.
different as well, right? So just give us a little bit of the the qualifiers and how you got to earn your spot with Team Canada Amateur Long Drive.
Sure. Okay. So very quickly. So when I entered my first competition, like I said, it was 2021 in Barrie, I went to that competition and then I went to another one in Hamilton. And unfortunately, I developed a really bad case of golfer's elbow because I didn't really know how to swing properly and with that power. And so it was a recipe for disaster that year, which is fine. So I learned a lot out of that. But unfortunately, that was kind of the end of my long drive season. So 2022 was the year that I really dove into long drive. And that's the fall before, so fall of 2021, I'm like, you know what? I love this sport. I want to get serious about it. So I looked around, I ended up getting two coaches. I got a golf fitness coach and I got a technique coach. And I recognized that in order to be able to get ready to swing and understand how to swing and use my body, I needed to build up the proper strength and mobility first. And so I worked with Evan Bett. He owns Swing Fit Golf Academy here in Ottawa. And he worked with me. So he's a TPI certified instructor and put me through my first examination sort of to see like where I'm at and where to, and then he designed a program for me specifically to target those areas that were weak. So I really worked hard with him in the gym over the winter to build that strength and mobility. Then comes in my technique coach in the spring. We did, yeah, it was in the spring of 2022. So my body now at this point is in a much better position to be able to swing, to utilize my body and start developing a long drive swing. And as you said, Elvin, it is different than the regular golf swing. So I worked with my coach. So my coach is Scott McLeod with Flagstick Magazine. I don't know if you know him or come across him. He has they have a podcast too. Anyway, so Scott McLeod is my technique coach. So then I started my 2022 season. And what it was is I was traveling to a bunch of different tournaments. The vast majority are competitions in Southern Ontario. So a lot are in Burlington, just outside of Toronto. There was one in Kitchener. Then there was one in Quebec, just south of Montreal. And at each of those competitions, they're divided into age categories. And it depends on how you finish. You get so many points. And at the end of the season, the top points qualifier automatically qualifies for Team Canada. And then in some respects, they will name a couple of other possibly second or third place as well, depending on how many slots there are on the team that year. So in 2022, I ended up the top points qualifier in the open division, and I was able to qualify on Team Canada. So that's how I found myself at my first World Amateur Long Drive Championships in 2022.
Cool. So you're you're still relatively new in the sport. You're
I
showing
am.
up to a world long drive as a member of Team Canada.
Mhm.
Run us through that process so how long does it take for the world long drive to like take place? Is it over a weekend, over 4 days? And you know, what are your stages going through? Like, getting past the first step, second step, all the way down to, you're in the finals,
Yeah.
right? And where was your mindset there going, yeah, maybe I can actually like win this?
So great questions, Alvin. So throughout the 2022 season, I was learning a lot about myself again, as a competitive athlete. And golf is one of those sports that's very mental. I think, anybody who has played this sport recognizes that the brain can really defeat you. So I was struggling, I'll be honest, throughout the season, ups and downs, and really believing in myself that I could do it. Because I was a relative newcomer, and I'd had some quote unquote success early on in the sense of knowing that I could hit. I started almost like, you start questioning yourself and you're like, oh my goodness, like what am I actually doing? You're almost a bit of imposter syndrome, if I dare say. So as we're progressing throughout the season, I was getting a bit frustrated heading towards the end of the season because all of a sudden I felt like I couldn't really swing a club very well. I wasn't hitting my distances. So I made a decision. I hired a mental performance coach and I worked with her, and she really was able to help me reframe and really just to kind of just have that confidence on the tee box. So I went into Worlds with just probably the best mindset I'd had all season because I had no expectations. My goal at the beginning of that season was I'm going to do the best I can and I want to make Team Canada. Right there, you know what? I had done both of those things. So World Championships and just being there was that icing on the cake. So I'm like, you know what? Whatever happens, I'm good to go. And I think because I was in such a good frame of mind, I was relaxed and it really allowed myself to just swing and just swing my club. And I ended up winning. And so this year that year in 2022 was in Bradenton, Florida. So there was I'm trying to remember how many women were in my division. In the open division, I didn't place as well. I placed I think it was actually last place in the open division. So and it was so I was up against a field, I think, of 6 or 7 girls, if I remember correctly. And but the yardages, like for the first two, the top two, they were like much further. And then the rest of us were all pretty close. Then I entered the 35 plus division and I did much better in that one. And like I said, I ended up winning. So you have some qualifiers. So at Worlds, you hit 3 sets, and in each set you hit 6 balls. So you have 2 minutes to hit 6 balls, and you have to land a ball when you say landed in the grid. And the grid for a long drive competition is between 45 and 60 yards. Worlds was 60 yards wide. So when you're swinging at those speeds, you not only have to swing that ball, you have to hit it pretty accurately in order to land in the grid. So at the end of the qualifier of those 3 sets, the top 2 girls then go to a final set where they hit 6 balls, and nothing else counts. And it's just everything out on the table. So, all of a sudden, whatever you've done in the qualifiers doesn't matter anymore. It's what happens in those 6 balls. And I managed to eke out the title. And I was really shocked. Obviously, I was really happy, but at the same time, I was in a lot of disbelief.
I get it. So you're in the 35 plus, and then you're in the 40 plus. Is that correct?
So yeah, so I was the first
So
year I did open and yeah,
right.
35 plus.
So in 2023, you won
Yes,
both titles, right? So
yes,
now
35.
is that two separate events?
Yes, correct. They were
So
two separate divisions. So I entered, yeah, 35 plus. So I was able to successfully defend my title for 35 plus. And then I did 40 plus. That was a new category for me this year. And so I entered it, and I was also successful in that category too.
wild, wild. So are you still a member of Team Canada?
I am, yeah. And actually, because I won 2 titles, I have direct entry back to Worlds again this year.
Ah, nice, nice. So when are
Mhm.
Worlds this year?
They're in September. I think it's end of September this year. Yes, I think it's the end of September in Columbia, South Carolina.
South Carolina. Cool. Well, we'll
Mhm.
be watching you down there. All right. There's your titles. Long drive. A little bit of an explanation on how the events work. So now let's get into the equipment.
Yes.
So um, give us a rundown on because do you have how many drivers do you use? Um, and if you can, Lori, some specs on these drivers.
Sure. Yeah. So I can give you that. So, okay, when I first started off, I just used my standard player driver. So 45.5 inches, and nothing special about that, just the one you're using out on the course, right? And then as I progressed in long drive, then I realized that I needed proper long drive equipment. Now, with that being said, there are people who still compete with shorter drivers. Like it's really a personal thing, right? It comes down to what works best for you, your technique, and what you feel most comfortable with. So right now in my bag, I carry 4 drivers. So I have 2 player length drivers. And oftentimes, what I'll do is I will just land one in the grid. So I may start off, depending on how I'm feeling on any given day, with a player driver. I'll land 1 or 2 in the grid just to kind of get me going, and then that way, at least I'm on the mark. And then I take out the other drivers and I kind of progress. And so I have 2 long drive drivers in my bag. So I have 48-inch TPT shafts. So those are specialized shafts that I think they're Swiss made. I was fitted for them by a dealer in Southern Ontario. So we went through a fitting process, and I have what they call a 19 high and a 21 high. So the 21 high is more flex than the 19. And on the 19 high shaft, I have a Callaway Rogue Max STLS head. And then on my 21 high, I have a Cobra LTDX head. So I kind of play around with them. I call the 21 high my money club. So in the sense that when I'm feeling really good and things are swinging well, I pull out the money club. And that's the club that helped me win this year because it's got a lot more flex. So for me, sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult to control depending on any given day. So I play around with however I'm feeling as well as the lofts. So I'll play around with the lofts. The majority of the time I'm playing with a 9-degree loft. So some of the long drivers, especially the guys who are hitting at the big speeds, are like really lofting down on their clubs. And some of the women, like the professional long drivers, they're lofting down more significantly than that. But I will do 8.5 to 9.5 depending on conditions. But 9 is kind of where I'm using mine, and I find it works well for me.
Cool. So, even as an amateur, Lori, because you were talking about bringing on coaches and the mental aspect. So even as an amateur, bringing on that type of help is important to building yourself as a long driver as well, just as it would be with a professional, I guess, right?
I would say so. Yeah. I mean, not all amateur long drivers have coaches. I made the decision that I wanted to invest in that because I wanted to really, for myself, because I was a newcomer to the game and I didn't have a long golf pedigree either. And I was still building my understanding of the sport. It was really important for me to have the proper guidance. So, especially too for me, who had found myself, getting out of shape over the years, I recognized that I really needed to spend some time in the gym and build back some of that strength and mobility to really maximize what I'm able to deliver. And then, like I said, having Scott as my technique coach has really helped me to understand how to hit. And now, what's great is that when I'm in practice sessions and things are going wrong and I'm not hitting, I now know enough that I can self-correct. And I understand, I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? Now I know why I'm doing that. So I need to, turn my body a bit more, or,
You
so
have
I'm at a
markers
point
that you can go back to,
exactly, which
which
I
is
didn't have before.
right, which is something that us in our going into our fourth year, this is something like when we get out of our rhythm and say, we're nothing is working either off the tee box or second shot because we're so new to the game and we haven't had any lessons or done it. Chris has a fitting for his clubs. I haven't done that yet, but we have no markers to go back to come and go, okay, back to back to this, and then work your way up again. So it is nice to have the markers to go back to when you're not performing the way you want, right?
I think that's for me the most important thing of having that coaching is because now I have a better understanding. And for myself, I didn't start off with bad habits. I really, worked to learn. I mean, I had a little bit because, when I was just kind of hacking around the club before, right? But really and truly, I was able to really work and develop a good, strong foundational swing for myself by working with my coach.
Cool. So do you play golf? Regular
I
golf?
do. I
You do?
do.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
do you take anything from your long drive out to say uh, a round of golf? Do you play normal golf competitively, or is that just your release from the, I guess, the stress of being an amateur long driver?
Good question. So the competitor in me always wants to compete, right? And push myself to be the best that I can be. And when I'm saying the competitive, I'm not, I mean, of course, you're competing against other people, but I'm really competing against myself and driving myself to be the best I can be. I've always been like that in everything I do. So I hadn't really competed in golf. I mean, I played a couple of small little things at my club, but this year I have new goals and new plans.
Okay,
So
so
it's a
so
very timely question.
okay, so yeah, let us know what in the regular golf world, because again, being part of Team Canada as a long
Mhm.
driver and then having another golf goal outside of that, give us a little bit of heads up on that.
Yeah. So, okay. So obviously, like I spoke about the fact that I will be returning to Worlds this year. So, I'm keeping up with my long drive training. But this year, my new goal is to work on my all around golf game. My short game is a bit abysmal. And so I told my coach, I said, this is the plan this year is that I really want to do that. And so he's excited by that. So we've now started working on all of my clubs. And I really want to, so I'll share with you a couple of goals I have this
Okay,
year. And you
do
know
that.
what? I set lofty goals. So any of my friends from the club who are listening to this podcast, you know what? I'm going to put the marker down. I'm going to enter my first club championship this year, and I want to win the women's division. So
Nice.
I am throwing down the gauntlet on this. I have a long ways to go, and I have a lot of work to do, but I've never shied away from doing the hard stuff and throwing myself off a cliff. So I want to do that. Plus, I've got a doubles partner, a female doubles partner from my club, and we're going to start entering some local tournaments as well.
Nice.
So I'm going to start that, and I may play one or two singles tournaments, amateur ones here around Ottawa, but we'll see depending on what my schedule is because I only have so much time as well, right? So,
Right, right.
but yeah,
So
so
so golf has taken that next step for you as well. So
absolutely.
um, I was going to ask you about your regular golf bag. So So what do you? I always like to know what's in the bag and what people are playing. So give us a little rundown on what you're in your regular golf game. What's in the bag? Because obviously it's a little different than your long drive, right?
Good question. So I'm in the process of transitioning. So I went down to Club Champion in Toronto over the winter and I got a full bag fitting again. I had done one about 4 years ago with Golf Tech. So in my bag right now, I have Callaway Maverick irons. I just sold two Big Bertha hybrids that I really wasn't using. I never really grew onto my hybrids. I don't know why, I just didn't. But my 3 wood right now, it's a Ping 3 wood. I love that. When we tested that again, it's still working really well. So I'm keeping that. It started off as the club I hated the most in my bag, and now it's one that I really love. So that's interesting. And then I have, what else do I have? Oh, I have a new putter. So I just got that. So I have a TaylorMade Spider Tour X putter, which is pretty cool. Getting used to that with a Super Stroke grip on it. And I've got new wedges. So Cleveland CBX 2s, I think they are 54 and 58 degree. So I'm just waiting. I've been buying these new clubs in stages. So the irons that I'm going to be getting are TaylorMade's. I'm trying to remember what they are. It's on my spec sheet, but they're what is it, P770s, something like that.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
P770.
yeah,
Yeah.
with like a steel reserve shaft, a special reserve shaft, and yeah, like I said, something like that. So I'll be getting those plus then the what will gap over, because I had a big gap between my 3 wood before and my 5 iron, as because I didn't like my hybrids, is I'm going to get a 7 wood. So that will be the new one.
Becoming way, way more popular lately, a 7 wood.
Yeah, yeah. So
Even with our amateurish crew that we have a guy that has a 7 wood in the bag.
interesting. Yeah, so that should gap over for what I need. So I should by late spring be ready to go. So I just have to order my iron set now. And yeah, so that's what's in my bag
Okay.
right now currently.
So before we wrap it up here, I have to ask the question, because you're an amateur,
Mhm.
is there any thoughts of going pro?
Oh, yes, I'm not gonna lie. I did have the thought before, right? There's a couple of things to think about. I mean, I had the fortune of going last year. I went to my first pro event that I World Long Drive Tour stop in Connecticut. That was a really great experience, and I wanted to do that just to kind of get a sense of what it's like. Where do I match up, and where am I at, kind of. And at that point, I mean, I definitely still have a lot of work to do. If I wanted to turn pro, I have a lot of work to do. But I think right now at this stage where I'm at, I think I will probably stay as an amateur and really like enjoy the amateur long drive world and maybe go to the odd pro event as an amateur potentially. We'll see how my long drive training goes and how I progress. But I think my new focus is really turning to my golf game and
Nice.
really becoming an all-round golfer, enjoying golf and seeing what I can do on the golf course.
Yeah, I get that because we're stepping into that area this summer of playing amateur tours as as guys that haven't been in the golf game for a long time. Um, we've got a couple of events that we are going to participate in, and again, you're just measuring yourself against that field, and that's just where we want. It's like I don't care if I go and finish last. I just want to go
Mhm,
and do it for the experience of doing
for
it,
sure.
right? And where we are in our age category, not dating myself or anything, but just to see where I still have a competitive edge. I still want to compete, and even if it's at the amateur level in a sport that I'm brand new in, I want that experience of participating in something like that. So I get where that comes from, but I mean, is there? It's probably naive of me to say, but the jump from the amateur ranks to the pro ranks, it's probably a huge gap, correct?
It depends to a certain extent now, and there's some that do it quicker than others. I mean, there's been a number of girls who have gone from they've done maybe 1 year in amateur and gone straight to the pro division. I mean, they're hitting well. They train really hard, and one thing I'll be honest is I only have also so many hours in my day. I have a full-time job. I'm also working on my PhD part-time, plus, so I've got a lot, so I kind of have to balance things. And I also, I mean, okay, I can't even actually, you know what? I can't even use the age factor because I'm 45 turning 46. But Kelly Rudney, who's going to be 50 this year, she just wants, so you know what? Like,
I
I
know,
have
I
so
saw
much
that.
respect. Kelly is amazing, right? She's not only an amazing athlete, she's an amazing person. I've looked up to her. She's helped me with my long drive game. So I can't say it's even age. But you know what? I for myself, I have I'm realistic expectations, and right now, you know what? Those girls, um, they're they they're beyond me at this point in terms of club head speed and ball speed. But just to have the chance last year to hit on the same tee box as these girls was pretty amazing, and to get a chance to meet them, they're a great group of women.
No doubt. We communicate with Kelly quite regularly.
Yeah, she's
We
awesome.
follow her because again, she's again as a person and as a long driver, she's pretty cool. So, but anyways, Lori, I really appreciate you coming on and chatting with us about this because it's our first foray into the long drive world, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us. This was a lot of fun.
I feel really honored that you asked me. Thank you so much, Elvin. And I just want to make a really quick plug that if there's anybody out there who is interested in just to see where you're at and hitting a a ball far, there's a number of places across the country that you can do that. So go to the Amateur Long Drive Canada site, ALD. You can Google it and go there and see there's probably an event near you, and just go out and give it a shot. I did, and look at what happened. I had no expectations that this was going to happen. So
That was awesome. And I really appreciate you again coming and joining us, Lori. We're looking forward to seeing you in the Worlds again this year, and we'll be following and we'll be posting some stuff when we see it for sure. So thanks again. Take care.
thank you. Good luck with your golf game this season.
Thank you.